Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me this evening on Jay Slay, Made in the USA, for this highly anticipated interview where we are going to explore truth, expose deception, and inspire courage. Guys, as I introduce this show and my guests, I want to make one thing really clear right out of the gate is that this show, as I open it up, these are my thoughts, my feelings. So everything I'm about to state is my thoughts alone. It's not my guest. This doesn't reflect on Rob or Matt. This is my opinion. And here's where it started for me, guys. Last year around this time, I posted a controversial video to my social media that I first seen back around 2020 that featured Charles Woods, the father of Tyrone Woods, who was one of the Benghazi four who died in that attack. And then I got in touch pretty quickly with Nick No, who was also in the video. He's an E4 enlisted person who was involved with battlefield operations that had oversight in Benghazi. So this was a video all about Benghazi and sort of the PSYOP and false flag operation that happened there. And then there was this quirky falconer guy named Alan Perot who was also in the video. But what I noticed about that video back in 2020 was it came on the scene hot. People were watching it like crazy. And then all of a sudden, big tech locked arms with each other from YouTube to Facebook and all the other big guys. And you couldn't find that video all of a sudden. And I was like, it was almost like a precursor to the whole Hunter Biden censorship that came out about the laptop. So I figured, okay, a few years have passed. I've got this growing Instagram platform. I might as well try my luck and see if, it'll stay up. And luckily it did. It didn't get taken down. But that video, it kind of helped me with some understanding. It completely overturned the mainstream narrative and provided motive for why the government would lie to us about Benghazi. It also helped me gain a deeper understanding of the connected tissue between government cover-ups going back to 9/11, Roberts Ridge and John Chapman, what they call the fallen angel with extortion 17, and even the recently botched pullout from Afghanistan. So for me, these pieces were beginning to come together. One thing that I'd never really looked at was an event that was right smack dab in the middle of all of it with high importance, which was the raid and the killing of Osama bin Laden at his compound, which I admit I had not looked into that deeply at that time. So before I go on, I want to say that all three of the men on the program tonight, myself, Robert O'Neill, and Matt Cubbler, all of us feel that there is heavy corruption within our government and that we do need to be asking hard questions whenever things do not add up. So there's no government lackeys here. Moving forward that story, that video got a whole lot of views that I posted. And I began to post more videos around that time period from 2011 to 2013. And I began to connect with others who had been deeply hurt by the government and have never stopped asking questions. People like Gold Star father Charles Strange, whose son died in extortion 17. Gold Star sisters and brothers and former special teams operators that behind closed doors were sharing with me things that made me question the true intentions of our government even more. My biggest personal questions around the killing of Osama bin Laden are more from a 10,000 foot level. They're based around the political convenience of its timing for the Obama administration, who was seen as soft on terror at the time, and my lack of trust for many of the key players involved, like CIA Director John Brennan, former SEAL and Vice Admiral McCraven, Obama's counterterrorism advisor John Brennan, and Barack Obama himself. I don't trust those people. They were involved at a high level. I've seen them, be corrupt in other areas. Why would I trust them in this? So for me, it's not nuts and bolts. It's a 10,000 foot level. So again, for me, it wasn't that much of a stretch to believe that Osama bin Laden could and should have been located and taken out sooner, or perhaps he'd been dead for some time and a body double was used to hoodwink even the SEALs who were involved in the raid. But again, I was not there. But tonight, one of our guests was there. So tonight I'm honored to have Robert O'Neill on the show, and I promise I'll change scenes and show you in a minute, buddy. But Robert is one of the most highly decorated combat veterans of our time. He served with SEAL Team 2, SEAL Team 4, and 6 for 8 years with SEAL Team 6, and having taken part in and led over 400 combat missions. He operated in Liberia, the Balkans, the Persian Gulf, Indian Ocean, Ukraine. I could go on and on. Obviously, Iraq and Afghanistan and Pakistan. He's been decorated 53 times, and his awards include 2 Silver Stars for gallantry in action against the enemy, 4 Bronze Stars with valor to denote heroism against the enemy. And man, I could go on and on with this thing. It is long. But Rob, I just want to tell you straight up, I think it is really cool that you have agreed to come on the show tonight to discuss these things, even though they might be controversial. My other guest tonight is Matt Cubbler. He was one of the guys who early on when I was posting those videos that I'm talking to you about, he was commenting quite a bit. And when Rob reached out and began to comment on those same videos, which I failed to mention, that's how I got in touch with him. Matt interacted with him. He engaged with him. And he even said, hey, I don't believe certain aspects of this. I don't believe you. And if you want to find that stuff, you can go back to those old videos from a year ago. But Matt has been now I'm that's the thing about these live videos, guys. I'm trying to remember all this stuff. Matt has been a federal air marshal. He's been a cop for over 25 years, and he's also been a military veteran himself. And he's one of the ones that introduced me to events like the happenings around Roberts Ridge, among many other things. He's also been a former guest on this show to talk about 9/11 and other topics. And Matt has been a great source of intelligence for me around a lot of these issues. So with that terribly long introduction, dudes, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, thank you guys again. As we jump into this tonight, let's start with you, Rob, back with something that I think all of us kind of remember. I mentioned that video and the Falconer and Charles Woods and all that. I believe that is where, didn't Donald Trump kind of buy into some of that and tweeted it, and you kind of came back at him about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, his the way that he described it is he didn't endorse it. He said he just retweeted it. And for me, if you're the commander in chief, you're the president of the United States. If you retweet something, you're endorsing it. That's a pretty high office to hold. And that didn't bother me at all. I did say something about Donald Trump retweeting it because you shouldn't. I don't think you should to bring that up. And the story of how I found out is actually kind of funny because I was at my wife's got a real job and I was at one of her events, I think in Phoenix, and I was having like a mojito by the pool or some shit. And I started getting one text from the dog handler who wrote the book No Ordinary Dog, and then the sniper who's actually the lead sniper to rescue Richard Phillips from Somali pirates. He was actually a sniper on the Bin Laden raid. They both reached out to me and said, "Holy shit, are we dead?" Joking, like because all this thing came out with, obviously we'll get into Extortion 1-7 and SEAL Team 6, but everyone from the mission's fine, and just the way they hit me up, I didn't even know what they were talking about. Like, are we dead? I'm like, are you in trouble? Do you need me there? I know you live in Texas. I can come get you out of jail. What do you need? And they sent me the article. I'm like, well, this okay. I mean, if nothing else, it's entertainment. But yeah, I remember seeing that, and I think irresponsible of a president to do that. Just the I'm a big believer in master the basics and keep it simple. Just the simplicity of potentially putting troops on the ground in danger by something irresponsible like a retweet. That's how I felt. And I don't agree with everyone, and I don't disagree with everyone. I don't believe everything someone says or whatever. And I agree with Donald Trump on a lot of policies that I didn't like, and I said it.
Yeah, no, well, good for you on doing that. I mean, if you disagree with something, even if you like the person, and I think I've heard on interviews that you're a Trump supporter, generally speaking, right?
Yeah, I didn't come out and officially endorse him, and I don't know what my endorsement would do. But beforehand, I think he was ahead of his time as far as the border. Obviously, the media took it a different way and they spun it as racism. But he was saying at the time when he was running, even I think back in 2015, Donald Trump said that crossing the border is bad drugs and bad people. There's sex trafficking and fentanyl, and he wasn't wrong. And the media just spun it because obviously he's not part of their deep state or swamp, as he calls it. And so they just didn't like him. But I mean, I like some of his policies. I don't have a problem with the president of the United States going into a room with world leaders, pushing everyone aside and taking the seat in the fucking middle. That's what you do as a president of the United States. They say you don't touch the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. Bullshit. He patted him on the back. Whatever. We're the United States. I'm all about alliance solidarity, forward defense, and deterrence. And he brings that. There's no doubt. You can't say he doesn't bring it. I think a strong United States makes a strong world. A weak United States makes a weak world. And Donald Trump was a strong president in that aspect. And I'm happy to go into more about that. But I like that. I like a strong dollar. I like a strong market. I like low gas prices, and I also don't want inflation being through the roof. I don't like paying $20 for a Big Mac.
Sure. Well, I think there is, and we can get on this later, but I do think there's a vested interest in these globalist leaders, internationalists that are have a vested interest in weakening America so that we can have sort of a new world order. I mean, the Bushes said it often. Many other presidents have said it often. And that leads into a lot of the reasoning that I have on why certain events have gone the way that they've gone is on purpose. Like the border, for instance, you mentioned that. I think it's wide open because they know it helps to weaken America, and it can help, ultimately reelect who they want to elect. So we'll leave that there. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Rob. You have another thought?
No, I was just going to say, you hear things like New World Order and Great Reset, and these are all real. And the sad, sick thing is, it all goes back to some greedy narcissist personal power. That's what it all is. They don't like the way that the United States is. They don't like the way that some voters are swinging to the right. Bring in chaos, immigrate mass chaos, and it's all. I mean, look, you don't need to look too far. Just look up Great Reset. You can. That's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're on the money, Matt. My intro was long, and then I opened with Rob. Why don't I take this time to give you the floor? I'm going to put you on the screen and talk about a little bit of your history involved with different areas of service. And then leading into today, why would you be coming here to talk to Rob about these things and have questions? So just kind of set a foundation for us.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'm honored to be on your show, and Rob, thank you again for doing this and entertaining this conversation. It's an important conversation, I think, and it's one I'm hoping opens up some thoughts in some people's minds and maybe get some clarity. For me personally, I've been 30 years in law enforcement, a little over 4 years as an air marshal, and the rest as a cop. I was an Army vet, Army intelligence, Persian Gulf War, active duty. I spent a career serving it just like you have, not nearly as heroically, but I have spent a career serving for the last 34 plus years. And one of my good buddies from high school, Joe Price, who was commander of SEAL Team 4, we both had appointments to service academies. He went and served in the Air Force Academy, and then transferred his commission to the Navy, and then went SEAL route. And I chose not to take my commission to the Coast Guard Academy, and decided to enlist in the Army and become an Army intelligence analyst. And we took different paths. Both ended up with great careers. And Job served his country with great dignity and honor. And sadly, in 2012, in December 2012, he was found dead in his bunk in Afghanistan with a single gunshot wound to the head. That never sat right with me, because Job was never an easy way out guy. There's nothing about Job that would ring that he would ever take that way out. But it wasn't really my place to ask those questions. And it's not a conversation you have with the family and say, hey, I really don't think he killed himself, just because it's your gut. So for the next 4 or 5 years, I was just left in the wind with that. And I just assumed everyone had got the answers they wanted, until his family came to me and asked me to investigate his death. And I was brought in on all of the available information on that, and the NCIS book, the Army CID book, all the crime scene photos, statements, everything. And after my investigation, I determined Job did not kill himself. It was very clear to me, based on the crime scene evidence and the lack of crime scene evidence, the tampering of evidence by his team members, the destruction of physical evidence by his team members, and the lack of transparency by most of the team as far as their statements go, that there was something other than a single gunshot wound to the head caused by Joe Price. And from that, sadly, and not by my choice, I was brought in on other investigations from, and I want to lead, Rob, that I have the utmost respect for you and what you've done in your career, and what anybody that serves their country does and puts their life on the line, puts their life on the line for anybody in any capacity. And for me, the knowledge that I've been brought in on was not voluntary. I was asked, and I responded, and I got sort of brought into this world, and now I'm here. So from this investigation into Job's death came information about the Osama bin Laden raid. So that's kind of where we are with this moment, is this information that I've been given through my interviews with current and former SEALs, from the teams to the Tier 1 SEAL Team 6 guys. I've been given way too much information from my brain, and I'm at this point now where I need to start getting some answers. And I think the only way that I get answers about Job is if we can crack some other parts of the structure of the cloak that the SEAL team, the brand, has through, because no one's listening
Real quick,
about.
Matt, on
So,
Job, he was SEAL Team 4, correct?
correct. Yeah.
Okay, and then
I
you
know that,
researched that, and you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Rob, I don't know if you ever had any overlap with Job when he was at two
Yeah,
or
I
four.
deployed with him once. He was the OIC of a sister platoon, and we were at SEAL Team 2 at the time, but we deployed together in 1999, 2000. And I've never really looked into his suicide. I remember obviously hearing it and then, being crushed by it. He's such a solid dude. And Matt, you and I obviously never talked about it, but my first gut reaction is that, I know a lot of SEALs, and that does not sound like him at all. And I don't know anything about what happened afterwards. I don't know what the team did afterwards. I knew it was a gunshot wound in his bunk, but yeah, I mean, Job was never that. I mean, everything Job was really, really good at what he did, very squared away, and he was meticulous isn't the best word because he wasn't like a micromanager, but he had his shit together, and when he was in charge, he knew it, and I mean, it just, I know guys who are troubled, I know guys who aren't, and he never ever one time struck me as someone who was troubled, and even like being at whatever level he was, a task unit commander at the time, or X, I don't know what he was, but like it's not going to
He was the
overwhelm him.
commander.
He was the commander. Yeah. Oh shit. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the guy that can do that. So that, I mean, just, jumping ahead there, but that didn't sit right with me either.
Well, in case we don't come back to it, which
So
we probably will, Matt, but what was the reason that they just said it was a straight up suicide? Why do you think they covered it up if you fully believe that it was not a suicide and he was killed?
again, my initial entry to this entire process was just to look at his case book
Right.
to determine whether or not, as a trained investigator, what did I see and what didn't I see. And I explained that, when I gave my briefing to the family, and then also in my letter to the Navy, that they basically packaged Job's case. I made this analogy. It was, when you get a 1,000-piece puzzle, that 1,000-piece puzzle has the picture of what that puzzle is supposed to look like on the outside. And then when you open a box up, there's 1,000 pieces. And if you're good, you put it together and it looks like the cover of the photo. They gave me a 1,000-piece puzzle with 250 pieces and tried to tell me that it was that picture. And it wasn't that picture. And then, the realities were that things were done that were completely against any law enforcement protocol and just common sense protocol when it comes to, he's commander of SEAL Team 4 at the time. I think he was the highest ranking person to die in theater at the time. And it was a blip on the radar on the television, and no one talked about it in the media, and it got no real attention whatsoever. And the family just sort of had to accept it, because what else would they know? And why would they ever think that anything other than what the Navy tells them is true, other than what you just said, Rob, that he didn't seem to be a guy, and I've known him since we were 12 years old. He's not a guy that would do that.
I
And
went back and
it just didn't feel right.
I went back and rewatched my interview, at least part of it today, with Charles Strange, and it's very reminiscent of his son's death and the story around Extortion 17. It's like you're told a story of what happened, none of the evidence lines up with it, and then you're asked to just accept it and no more answers. And it's really amazing when he gets a chance to talk to Barack Obama, and Obama's telling Charles, your son's such a hero. He's never met his son, but he's like, your son's such a hero. He died with honor and valor. And Charles gets angry. He's like, I don't care but what you have to say about my son. I want to know what happened to my son. And the Secret Service came in and escorted Obama away and took him outside. And it's like that is my kind of the heart tug that I have both to both of you, Rob and Matt, on why I'm interested is I meet these people who have been hurt. They're not getting answers. And it raises some real questions, because now I can put a face on it. Matt, last question for you on that whole deal. Who are these people calling you in to do investigations?
His father and sister and wife at the time, but then his wife has since decided that my help is not needed anymore. And the way it works with information in the military is, especially if there's a death, that the spouse or the closer surviving relative is the one that has the ability to request and ask for information.
Yeah.
And that would be his wife. And we can get into the ingratiating component of the SEAL teams and how they keep people close when there's trouble. And Rob can probably attest to this, that, they circle the wagons better than anybody. When something may or may not be perfectly right, they circle the wagons, and they did that with Job's wife, and sadly, she's not participating in finding answers about what happened to her husband anymore. And that to me is a travesty, because his daughter deserves to have the truth told, and I'm not going to stop until I figure it out. And yeah, I'm willing to have tough conversations with people like Rob, and anyone else that wants to have this conversation about things that I've been told from people who are just as heroic and um, involved in the process of being a SEAL. That, I can't discount that information any more than I can trust what Rob's information. So everything is sort of on the table for me, and that's why I
Yeah.
had these conversations with everybody. And I make comparisons. I use patterning. I try to figure out where there are consistencies or inconsistencies, and I try to work through this just like I'm working a case, as I did for 30 years as a cop.
Rob, let me ask you, first of all, what were your years in service?
I left in January of 1996 for boot camp. I graduated BUDS in 1997. No, sorry, I
Okay.
graduated in 1996, showed up at SEAL Team 2 in 1997. And, pre 9/11. So basically just got to meet great dudes, travel and shoot a lot. It was a completely different world. Naive as shit. And Jay, we've talked offline about this too. Like, I was as American as apple pie, and the government won't lie, and they're going to do the right thing, and we're the greater force for good and all that stuff at the time. And then 9/11, and then and not even 9/11 until then, but like now, and just getting older, I think more experienced. Like, I think the three of us here would be the guys that people on the internet are calling boomers. You shut up, boomer, or whatever.
I hope we're not there yet, man.
No, but they call us that because they don't give a shit. But no, just like the more that I've gotten away from it too, it's like that's the reason I'm here too, is just the investigation, the questions being asked, there's questions that aren't being answered for sure, and there's a difference between yelling on comments and then having a legit
Sure. Yeah,
conversation.
exactly. Well,
I take everything with a grain of salt too. But yeah, so I was in for a while. I saw pre 9/11, post 9/11, and then I've been paying attention. I have friends that are still around.
so what is something you'd be willing to share? Because like you said, we've had conversations offline. One of the things I respected was you said Jeremy, you should be questioning everything our government does at this point, geopolitically, militarily, or otherwise. You ask those questions. So obviously, you yourself have reason to say that. What's an example, if you don't mind, of something that like opens your eyes? You're like, what? This isn't right.
Well, I mean, the reason that there's a couple things, but one of the reasons that I'm interested in potential backstories is the Bin Laden raid's a prime example of a very well planned mission that went wrong off the bat, but we were able to do it simply because it was like most missions, and it wasn't exciting, and we got out of there, and as like I saw everything happen. And then to hear conspiracies about it, it's like, well, I mean, that's not what happened. It's a lot easier than that. It's not as complex. But what about stuff? Because like I'm a big believer in talking about what I saw, but I can only talk about what someone told me if I wasn't there. And I got more interested, like the more you heard the stuff about Buzz Aldrin saying this, the most dangerous part of the moon mission is we didn't go. And then there's
Right.
there's stuff everywhere that we're not getting the full truth. And I'm interested in who's saying what and what the sources are, because there's nothing wrong with questioning everything. Like, if you're not questioning it, like, it's almost like the reverse role of what punk rock used to be. Like, fuck you, I won't do what they tell me. But now it's like, fuck you, I'll do what the establishment tells me. They're not necessarily telling the truth. But I did see the Bin Laden raid happen, and it's just it's very simple. Like, a lot of times what I've noticed is the simplest answer is what actually happened. So I'm more curious about what people are saying about other things. The Benghazi thing fascinates me because I wasn't there. And like anything else, I can read about it. And same with with Syria, the same with Extortion 17. Now Extortion 17 is different because I actually went in country after they were shot down to backfill with Silver Squadron. And I have seen some of the items there. I was given some of the debriefs and shown some footage. So I'm a little bit aware of that too. But it's like, people always want this big, grand, exotic explanation of some things are just simple. And so I'm just a lot of it's for my curiosity. Like I said, the Bin Laden raid went shitty. We had guys there. We did what we always do, and then we came home.
Well, do me a favor here, Rob. I know a lot of people, they can, if you go to YouTube and type in Rob O'Neill, Bin Laden raid, you're going to find 300 different videos of you, giving the same story. But indulge us for a minute. For my audience that may have not heard you tell it, give us the 4 to 5 minute lay of the land, from the time you take off in one of the Chinooks to get there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And before you Google Rob O'Neill, just be careful. Some weird shit can come up. Yeah, I mean, we were told about the raid about 2 weeks before we went. And like, even some of the shit I heard is they didn't tell us till we were in the helicopter flying in. They said, "Hey, it's Bin Laden," and we were all high-fiving and shit. Didn't happen. Before they even told us what it was, we put two and two together. And when they did tell us, this is as close as we've ever been to Osama bin Laden. We were in a locker room. There was no cheering. The common question was, "Cool, are we going now?" Because we're guys that have been at war for so long, and we were handpicked because we were all experienced. These are mostly team. I was a team leader. Also, other team leaders were there, and then the seconds in command. And they picked the most experienced guys available from 2 tier 1 squads at the time. So they told us that. We trained for a couple different things. There was 5 options. We were one. We forward staged in Jalalabad to wait for the green light, which we thought might come. We thought they had the hammer throw. They're going to hit him with 1 missile or like 22 JDAMs, which are 2,000-pound bombs, which would have wiped out the whole neighborhood. We were just over there in case, and we were picked because no one would have noticed that we were training. We were supposed to be training. We got the call, the green light on Friday. We launched on Sunday because of the correspondence dinner, which was it's actually kind of a cool story. If you see Seth Meyers roasting Barack Obama the night before the Bin Laden raid, saying that we can't even find Bin Laden, and he hosts a show on C-SPAN every night at 5, making a joke about, no
I
one
saw that.
C-SPAN.
I saw that today, kind of researching a little bit.
And then Obama was just sitting there smiling. Like, my loud mouth would have said, "We're going to fucking get him tomorrow." But we watched that. We launched on Sunday. We had McRaven gave us a speech. We went to the fire, took a picture. And then we got on the birds, and it was, even talking to the analyst that found Bin Laden, when I asked her right before we left, "Why are you nervous?" And she said, "What the fuck? Why aren't you nervous?" And I said, "Well, because I do this every night. We get on helicopters, we fly somewhere, we fuck with some people, we fly home. This is just a longer flight." And granted, when we were there, you take your last minute piss and then whatever, smoke a cigarette if you got one, and give each other hugs. And then we flew, and then you got that 90-minute flight in with birds that we don't know if the technology works. These pilots just started flying. They're the best pilots in the world, and we can get shot down. But worrying about a missile is not going to stop it. And if you're wasting energy on something you can't affect, stop wasting your energy. Whatever you're worried about right now that you can't affect, get it out of your head.
How many weeks had you? I know there was like a full mock-up, right, of the compound that you guys had been training at for a while. How many weeks did you actually work on it?
I think we did 5 days in North Carolina, maybe 4.5 days on one of the sites. Then we flew out west to. I'm not going to say where we went, but you can figure it out. That's one of the NDAs I signed. And they had another site there just to see the helicopter, see if they worked with the pilots flying, and do full mission profiles. So about 4.5 days, then 4 days out west, and then we had a night at home. Then we left.
Gotcha. Okay, go ahead with the story. I was just curious about the backdrop there.
And we were able to always keep your plan simple, because the only time a plan works is when you're planning. You start. One of my favorite sayings is just don't talk yourself into an ass whooping. The guy in front of you goes left, go right. That's it. So we had the 90-minute flight in, and we've all been in these birds before. I was counting 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 0. And I was looking around, like one dude put his headphones on. He was sleeping, which I thought was awesome. Because you're asleep on the ride to Bin Laden's house. You got ice in your fucking veins. I get it. That's great. And then 10 minutes out, you're kind of getting close. And then the air crew, who don't get any credit at all, he reached over at about 2 minutes, yanked the door open, and little shit like that registered with me, because the job was to keep the bird flying, open the fucking door, right? Imagine if he wasn't there and none of us knew how to open the door. That's a major part of the mission that wouldn't have gotten done without him. He never gets credit. And if we got shot down, his family would have missed him just as much. So we did that. And then Dash 1 was going to fast rope in front of the main house with 2 ropes, 1 on each side, snipers out the side. When they all get down, they're going to come down too. So they empty that bird. We have the dog, an interpreter, handler, snipers, and a couple saws. They're going to get out. My team's going to the roof, right? We're going to fast rope onto the roof, jump to the balcony, and we're going to hit them this way. And I thought we were going to get in a shootout right through the window. I was actually calling my team the Martyrs Brigade, because this is going to be an houseborne IED. and we're going to die as soon as we get on the rooftop. So,
Yeah,
make
and
it a good one.
you're one of 4 choppers. They're all Chinooks, right? Or at least 2 of them.
No, we were in 260s, and they were the upgraded stealth versions.
Okay, and how many total?
There were two more Chinooks behind us, about 45 minutes, and that was just a contingency that they came up with when President Obama wanted more ass. Like, he didn't want us to potentially have to not surrender, but negotiate with Pakistani police, because they're gonna show up first. And like, people always say, that's another conspiracy. Well, their West Point was right there. Why didn't they show up? It's like, well, if we got invaded by our West Point, it's not going to be the cadets that show up. It's the fucking cops. That's that. So he just gave us more stuff, and we're not going in there to kill Pakistani policemen. We're in their country. We're not doing it. So we just had more there. But they were supposed to let our guys out, put us on the roof, and then our pilot all of a sudden went back and landed. And basically, we weren't in communication with him. He was saying, get out. And so we just kind of knew by reading off him to get out. I didn't know they crashed, but we knew where we were based on it. We'll breach the walls from here. So we went to the northeast corner off to my left, put a 7-foot charge of C6 on it, blasted that. It opened, but there's a brick wall right behind it. And the breacher actually turned around and said, failed breach, this is bad. And I said, no, this is good, because nobody does that. No one makes a fake door. So we're going to go to the main entrance. I didn't know they crashed, but I told them, hey, I'm going to blow the carport, which is the double doors that did open. And someone just said, no, don't open it. Don't blow it. We'll open it. And the door just opened, and a thumb came out with a glove that I recognized, thumbs up. And it didn't still register with me, but it's one of those times. And I always say this especially when I talk to football teams, especially talking to the offense, that it doesn't matter why it's 2nd and 15. It just is. And that clock is ticking. Move. And so that's where if we live, I'll find out why they're in there. We went inside. There was already a gunfight going on. One of my guys killed a dude in the main house, and his wife jumped on. He actually asked me on the way in. This is where our minds were.
Wait, the gunfight was from the guys who landed on the ground going in from the bottom floor?
Yeah. So they had a couple of guys had gone over to the guest house, shot it out with, I think that was a Brar, one of the brothers, and his wife. They shot it through the door, and then dude and his wife were shot. And the guy that did it actually, and here's a team leader from SEAL Team 6 who's been in combat, and he said, shit, the woman just jumped in front of him. Am I going to get in trouble? And I was like, dude, fucking forget about trouble. Let's get upstairs. But that's how the ROEs start screwing with shit.
What's ROE? Rules of engagement.
Why am I worried about a JAG or NCIS coming after me when we should be going after the number 1 terrorist in the world?
As you're talking, Rob, can you see how I changed the picture to this image?
I got you.
Is that fairly accurate to what you're talking about?
Yeah, so it says security gate, and that's the one we came in through when they opened it. And then just right off of that, there was another gate really close to get you into that side yard. And I don't really remember. There was an entrance because I walked around to the front of the house, went in that on the first floor, the front of the house. It says the house that says Bin Laden's bedroom main building. That's I went at the bottom of that floor. And we already had probably, there might have been 6 or 8 dudes inside the house already. And they were dealing obviously with the families that were still there, trying to get the women and children together and just hold security there. And then I had 2 guys in front of me breaching on the far wall. So as we walked in from the south up to the north side of the building, that's where a wall was. It was barricaded. They were working the breaching problem there, and I basically was standing there looking for thermal barrack charges hanging from the ceiling, because this house is coming down. It's going to blow up. And didn't happen. We got to the stairs. The woman that found Bin Laden said we would run into Khalid Bin Laden, which we did. I was still back looking up, and the point man just tricked him. He said, Khalid, come here, in 2 different languages, confused Khalid. He was armed, popped out, he blasted him, then we went to the second floor. Everyone except the point man in front of me started clearing left and right, because you don't want to move to another floor without clearing the one you're on, for obvious reasons. And then they went left and right. That put me at 2-man. And so as 2-man, I've got my hand on the shoulder of the guy in front of me. His job is to look forward with his gun pointing that way at the threat. My job as 2-man is to look backward, and I'm waiting for more guys. And when I get enough, I wanted 4, but I would take 2 to go up the last set of stairs. I squeeze him on the shoulder, and he goes, and he just started talking. He didn't know it was me, but he knew it was someone. He said, hey, we got to go. We got to get up these stairs. And I remember it wasn't bravery on my part. I was like, okay, Bin Laden's going to be up there. He's definitely going to blow himself up, and I'm just tired of thinking of it. So I squeezed him on the shoulder. He went up, and there's a curtain at the top of the stairs. He assumed there were suicide bombers behind it. When he moved the curtain, there was, I think, two two girls there. He assumed they were bombers, so he moved them and kind of jumped on them to absorb the blast. And how this dude doesn't have a Medal of Honor, I'll never know. And like I said before, a dude in front of you goes left, you go right. I turn right. There's Bin Laden standing there, taller than I thought he'd be.
That's once the curtain is open.
Well, the curtain was open. It was in front, and we went through it, and then to the right. Immediately to the right was another doorway to his bedroom, and he was like almost in the doorway. He was standing in front of a mall, and the way he was maneuvering was, I assumed, suicide vest, and it was a quick. I looked at him for maybe a second, and again with the conspiracies, people say, well, why'd you shoot him in the faces? You're supposed to ID him, and anyone that says that's never dealt with a suicide bomber, I have. And they blow up really fucking fast. And all they got to do is put two leads together that they put on their wrists, and everything blows up. And the way to stop him is shoot him ideally in the mouth, hit him in the pons medulla. But I shot him right around here twice, and then once more on the ground, just because people don't die as fast in real life as they do in movies, and I do not want him to blow up. So I shot him there, and then after that, I moved a mall, and his 2-year-old son was standing there. And this is the humanity of missions like this. It's not a video game. As a father, I looked at this 2-year-old kid, and my first thought was, this poor kid has nothing to do with this. And so I moved him out of the way, moved them all back to the bedroom, and kind of gathering my thoughts. And other guys were coming in the room. And I had a dude, actually the dude from downstairs that shot the two. He came up to me, and he said, "Hey, you good?" And I said, "What do we do now?" And he said, "Now we find the computers. We do this every night." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. I'm back." And I said, "Holy shit!" And he goes, "Yeah, you just killed Osama bin Laden. Your life just changed. Now get to work."
And so what was the work involved at that point? Like, what'd you do before you left the compound?
Well, the plan was just to put him in a body bag, take a sample of DNA, obviously the pictures, which we have, and I don't know why they haven't released those.
Would these be the ones that McRaven sent to the CIA so
yes.
the public cannot access this?
Yes. And if they ever, you'll see my gloves. I actually have my gloves right behind me. My gloves are in the picture because I'm holding his fucking head together.
Are they still bloody?
No, I wore those for another deployment, okay. So they weren't that. And that's
like lucky batting gloves in baseball, you know.
Why didn't I? Yeah, why did I clean them? Why didn't I pick up the brass? Why didn't I grab more shit? Because at the time I'm thinking, all right, let's get the fuck out of here. Because I'd said goodbye to my kids. I want to see them again. And so the plan was to DNA, split up the DNA in the body, and then leave. But when I got word from guys on the second deck that they found so much shit. So I went down there and helped them. We found, I think, 3 offices. And the first thing I found were these huge duffel bags full of, I thought they were freeze-dried ribeyes. And I'm like, well, they were in it for the long haul. They're hard pointed, but it wasn't. It was pure opium. It was a raw opium. Huh. And they were selling that to fund Al-Qaeda is the word I got. So we found there's computers, and I'm talking like old school towers and desktops and CDs and like discs and then papers. And so we're going through sensitive site exploitation, gathering all this stuff up. And we sold it as, we wanted 32 minutes on the ground, but now we're pushing 45. And it's like, okay, we got to make a call. We got to blow that bird, call another 47, get out of here. So we started rounding people up like, again, if we had true allies in Pakistan, we should have been able to hardpoint there, set up shop, bring the Pakis in, and we can tear the whole place apart. But we had to leave because, Pakistan's embarrassed. They've been housing bin Laden. So we called another 47, blew up the first one. The first team left on the bird I came in on. The second 47 came in, and then we got in there and we left. And then we had another 90-minute flight. Now we know they can shoot us down. They know we're here. And, we've sold Pakistan F-16s. Not a good fight between a Chinook and an F-16. But the word I got, they didn't tell us everything. The word I got is we had better assets nearby that could tell them they don't want to engage, and we didn't get shot at. And then we landed and we showed his body to McRaven and to the CIA agent that found him, most of the team, the other team. And then they left. We went to Bagram, and that's when they brought out the 3-letter agency, smart guys taking professional pictures and taking real DNA. And we were on the phone with the White House, and then they brought us breakfast sandwiches, and President Obama came out and said the mission was over. And it took them a minute and a half to say no one was hurt, which we could have used that right off the bat, but that was it. I mean, that's what happened. And I wish there was more to it. It was just that simple.
Sure. Well, thank you. As you were talking, I wrote down 4 or 5 questions of my own, but this is not I want to be more of a moderator in this because Matt knows more about the nuts and bolts of the whole thing. He's looked into it more deeply. So I'm going to back up here, and Matt, why don't you take the floor? Cause I'm sure you have questions yourself.
Yeah, I definitely do. But I want to first, if we can, because it's easy to get in the weeds with one specific mission and isolate that and it not have the same contextual values of looking at things from more of a an umbrella type approach. And if you can just entertain me for a few
Sure.
minutes here, Rob, I'd appreciate that.
No
If we
problem.
go back and you talked about in the beginning of the segment, Jay, that with Roberts Ridge and understanding, from my point of view, the systemic um, corruption within the SEALs themselves, not necessarily individual SEALs per se, but the SEAL programs.
Okay, guys, it looks like we're back, and we should
Yes.
pick up the stream right we left off. Don't know what happened, but I do know that on Rumble, when you have a breakup like that, there's a pause for the live audience. So thank you for staying tuned. Matt, just go back about one sentence and pick up right where you left off, my friend.
I don't even know where we ended up, but I want to say that first of all, thank you for indulging me on a little bit of latitude here on my point. But
Okay.
and just in case it was the CIA that did this, I am not suicidal. I just want to make sure.
Wouldn't put it
My
past
son
them.
did text me tonight.
Wouldn't put it past them.
My son said, "Don't get Epstein." So
Yeah, none of
Yeah,
we'll leave it
I
there.
almost did a video today. I'm not suicidal. I promise. I'm not. I love my
Okay,
family. I love my life.
none of us are.
So, Jeremy, you said in the beginning about Roberts Ridge and going back as far as that. And for me, once I got into the weeds with Job and his investigation and understanding a little bit more of the complexities of the players involved in the higher ups in the chain of command and the expectations um, of the time when Job was commander, what was going on in country in Afghanistan, there's a lot of contiguous pieces that go before Job died and after. And it goes back to Roberts Ridge. And I call Roberts Ridge, while probably not accurate, probably goes back to Marcinko a little bit more deeply than just Roberts Ridge. But Roberts Ridge to me is the original sin. And when you think about the egregious sin that occurred there, if you think about SEAL Team 6, Rich Slabinski was the team leader, at the time. You know, People that were in charge of um, within the SEAL community were later elevated to higher, even major roles within JSOC and Naval Special Warfare and commanding those organizations. So Roberts Ridge, Chris Slabinski, John Chapman, who's the Air Force Combat Controller on that flight, they go in on this raid that was probably ill-advised, and I know a couple teams turned down that raid, and they do this raid and they get, long story short, gets shot down. Neil Roberts falls out the back. They're going in for landing to get hit by a RPG SA-7, depending on who you talk to. He falls out the back. They decide they're going to go make another pass. They crash land. Team rolls out. Fritz Slabinski, John Chapman make their way up the mountain. John Chapman was the one to lead that charge. He did a lot of heroic stuff. I'm not saying Fritz Slabinski wasn't heroic, but what was told as the explanation later was not cool with me, in that he took a lot of the accolades that were rightfully attributed to John Chapman. And had it not been for that drone footage and then the AWACS ability to identify who was who in the videos from that time, they would have never known who was doing what on that mountain. And John Chapman was left to die. Intentionally or not intentionally, that really makes no difference. They didn't stop to check and see if he was alive, and they were taking fire. Don't get me wrong. There's some heroic shit going on up there. I'm not discounting that. I'm just stating some facts. And the facts are that John Chapman was left there and then ultimately woke up and single-handedly helped save the QRF force coming in and fought for another hour and ended up with 26 wounds before he died, and was justified in receiving 2 um, Congressional Medals of Honor. And the problem with this is that it was so carefully, neatly packaged as a Navy SEAL victory of heroism from Fritz Slabinski, and John Chapman was an afterthought. And there was actually attempts by the Navy to suppress John Chapman's Congressional Medal of Honor, and those things didn't sit well with me. And when you think about the amount of effort and time it took to cover something up for that long of a period of time, you have to start to ask yourself questions as to why and what is the upside for it. And if you look at the timing of when things started to become um, specialized in the war, where the SEALs were recruiting, and there was this push for the branding of the Navy SEAL itself, and there was this step-by-step process of building this animal known as the brand. And some people think it's a conspiracy theory. I'm very sure it's not. And you think about that one moment and how that then became the I don't want to say the example, the blueprint, but pretty much what
Was it like
happened.
you've described to me as a catalyst? Like it kind of
Yeah, it's the catalyst. Yes, it's the thing that jump started for me. Jump started the ability for those in power to believe that they can control any narrative regardless of what the truth is. And there is plenty of moments throughout the course of the last 22 years where that's been evident. And whether it's the wedding party where they were they basically the helicopters blew up an entire convoy of people thinking it was potentially Osama bin Laden, but it was and at least Al Qaeda, and it ended up being a wedding party. There was a whole big cover up of that. Um, you know, Operation Red Wings clearly was not necessarily as, from what I've been told, it didn't necessarily go down the same way that the movie or the books or a lot of the people that were involved in that. Well, and I guess really there's only one person involved in reality, Mark Luttrell. Everyone else was
Now,
on
Matt,
that
clarify real
mission.
quick for the audience. Operation Red Wings was the rescue mission for
Yep,
Luttrell, or was it actually
correct.
Luttrell's mission?
No, it was the rescue mission to go and
Okay.
rescue him.
Okay.
And
So
Rob,
basically what we saw in
correct
the
me
movie.
if I'm wrong in any of this. Feel free to chime in and let me know if I'm factually not hitting some points.
No, I
Feel
mean,
free.
Red Wings was the mission to capture Kill Ahmad Shah, as far as I know. And I was at the airfield. I actually one of the last guys to see those guys alive. I was
Mm-hmm.
running. I was part of an outstation at Jalalabad, and they part of their huge complex insertion method was to stop by JBAD, which they did. And I actually took motorbikes over there to see the guys, not thinking anything would happen. But I mean, semantics. It was. I think that was
Right.
Red Wings because I was a hockey fan, and that's back when we could name our own missions. The first mission I did in Afghanistan was Destiny because we were naming them all after strippers, and no one was. I mean, that's how we did it at the time. Uh, but yeah, I mean,
Now,
I
were you supposed to be on that mission on the helicopter itself? Were you
I
supposed to be
tried
on?
to get on. I tried to get on the raid because they said they were putting 4 guys in to watch this compound, and then once they see him, they're going to send the shooters in. So I had me and another SEAL from 6 there, and I said, "Hey, can we get on?" They said no. And again, to your point, the interesting thing that sort of gets blown away is our intel was telling us there were missiles in that valley, and they weren't RPGs for Red Wings,
They're
and
SA-7s.
why upper echelon SEAL Team 6 wouldn't let anyone from SEAL Team 6 get on those birds. I wasn't there when they took fire or got shot down, but I did see the guys there, and I talked to them before. And then I was on the mountain for a couple of days trying to find both Matt Axon and Marcus Luttrell. That's But I mean, I talked to the second helicopter that didn't get shot down because I was at the safe house. I drove back, and the second bird actually landed in the wrong spot, a different part of town. And that, I don't know. I mean, obviously the adrenaline's going with the pilots because you almost got hit by a missile. And the guys running through the gate said out the window they saw plumes of smoke and they were turning, and the second one just missed. So, I mean, if you're in a 47, we talked about that earlier, and you get shot at with a missile, you're probably going to die. And they got really, really lucky. And then, we went up
And
on the hill, and it was.
I mean, the official story on that, there were RPGs, but I mean, it was SA-7s clearly that were shot there. And thank
I
you for answering that, because again, and I'm trying to be as diplomatic as I possibly can
oh,
with
you're
all these
great.
questions without. The reality is that I have spoken to people that were on that helicopter,
Yeah.
that were on that mission, that have given me information, and then I've spoken to people who have also spoken to people on that, and one of the things was that you and I don't want to say the other guy's name, but his last name begins with R, were supposed to be on that helicopter, and then got told no. So
Yeah, I
thank
mean,
you for confirming that,
we
because that
asked
is
because
one of the things that was.
yeah, sure. I mean, And at the time too, because I mean, life happens fast and life is fragile. And the thought, I mean, it's June, nothing really going on. If I can get on this mission, I'm at least going to ask, because that, I mean, what a great mission, a direct action on Ahmad Shah. And they did turn us down, so that maybe they knew something I didn't. But we were feeding them intel from that valley too. We had a safe house in Jalalabad and Asadabad, and we were telling them that shit.
And not to belittle anything, not to beleaguer anything, but there's always an air for me, at least anymore, and that's, I think, with anything in our government anymore. We don't. There's this mistrust with everything that is going on in our government, and when you get deep into the weeds, and I don't know how deep involved you are in understanding different missions that you were not a part of, and having those conversations and understanding truth versus fiction versus the narrative that was put out for public consumption. And having been a former intel guy, I'm well aware of why some things don't get released. I get that. But then I also understand that there are also, I've talked to a lot of guys who have admitted to doing some really heinous things in the name of our country as members of the teams. And they were telling me things that they needed to get off their chest. And granted, none of this is on record, and they're not saying things that they're ever going to go on the stand for, and no one's ever going to put their name on an article. But I became sort of like a priest to a lot of guys, and because I'm coming at this from trying to solve a buddy's murder, and that's all I care about. And I've had conversations, and I've had some threats against me from people within the teams that told me I need to back off, and I'm like, listen, I'll back off as long as you let me have Job's killer. I don't care about anything else. That's really all I care about.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, even with, I'm fortunate. Just speaking for me, I never did any of that stuff because I'm lucky now because I have enough PTSD to be crazy without doing bad shit. But like even this damn tomahawk behind me, it fell over. But we have those. But people say, well, we heard this. I'm like, dude, why would I waste any weight at all with a tomahawk? I'm going to carry more bullets. But I've heard shit too. But I've never seen it, never done it. But I mean, you did. I didn't know Job was investigating Red Wings.
No, he wasn't. Job wasn't investigating Red Wings. I got brought into that after I was investigating Job, his murder.
Okay. Oh, I mean, Robert's rig.
Yeah. No, Job wasn't doing any of this. I was brought into all these things post my exposure to Job's case.
Yeah.
And I mean,
the way that I can relate to this is there's cleaner ways to tell authority what happened, because I mean, again, with the mistrust of the government, I don't need someone on Monday morning telling me I'm going to prison for something we did on Sunday. And the best way it was put to me to put it in really good terms is I had a boss one time because we'd hit a target in Iraq. This is in Iraq. And then you find intel on the target, hit another follow on. And we're going through this thing. And for some reason, the ground force commander found his way into where I was in the house, because the team leader's job is to run the guys in the house. Ground force commander runs the assets, right? But he's in there, and I have my thing out, and I'm telling him on the grid reference guide or whatever. I said, okay, here we are now, and what we got to shit. I said, you know what, sir, you're in charge. And he said, oh, make no mistake, I'm not in charge. I'm responsible. You're in charge. And that's just sort of a saying, like, this is gonna be clean. I can see that.
No doubt. And I believe Job saw some things and uncovered, knowing Job's Boy Scoutish type personality. He was the white knight guy.
Boy Scout, that's sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was just always the goofy, likable guy. And he was a heavyweight wrestler and lineman in high school.
Let me throw out a name real quick, because as you guys are talking, there's one prolific name as far as an investigative journalist that comes to my mind. Obviously, I'm going to know this guy. I think his name is Matt Cole, and he's the one that's done a lot of the excavating on. You talked about the hatchet, Rob, and he talks about SEAL guys, scalping people.
Did I say tomahawk or hatchet? I should have said tomahawk.
Tomahawk. There we go. Right. So what I hear you saying is, there, as far as you have seen in your time, zero validity to that in terms of your eyeballs knowing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why if you see some interviews that I say, I always tell people that we were the good guys. And maybe I'm just misinformed because my team was good. We didn't do anything. I never had a desire to murder. I wasn't bloodthirsty. I questioned whether or not I was a sociopath for a while, but that's not the case. But I mean, I never saw any of that. And to me, it
Well,
didn't,
hold on,
it
bro. Are
made,
you being serious though? When you say that in jest, but like for real, like have you ever wondered, like, am I a sociopath?
well, I mean, it's just a normal job. I knew SEALs families and bartenders. And so everything we did was normal. And it just took me 7 years to start to feel the effects of killing people. I just thought, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what we do. But even having conversations with, I never carried a pistol because too much weight. And if I'm in the mountains in Afghanistan, I have a pistol, I'm a waste of space. Instead of the pistol, I'm carrying a rapid rod so I can clean my primary out. Just that I need that gun. So I'm not carrying a tomahawk. I'm not carrying a pistol. I'm not shit that I don't need, because in those mountains, weight is in ounces and ounces or pounds, and you're going to get fucked. I'm carrying an extra bullet before I carry a knife. Shit like that. I don't need to get in a knife fight. And the thing with the pistol, people will say, why don't you carry a pistol? Because I learned in combat, because combat's great training, that if my primary goes down in a room, by the time I get to my pistol, the guy next to me, the 2-man, already shot the guy. So I don't need it. But yeah, I mean, this other shit, because I've read the stories, I've heard the rumors, never seen it in person, and I can speak for myself. I couldn't scalp someone. I mean, not now. It depends on what they did to me eventually, but
Gotcha.
And I think there's truth to every story. That there isn't. I'm sure there was someone within Red Team, called the Red Men, the whole Wayman Howard, giving everybody the hatchets, and the whole process of that. I don't know, camaraderie. We're the hatchet men, or tomahawks, whatever the hell they called it, but we're the Red Men, Red Team, and yeah. So I mean, I get there's the rah rah shish from Bob part of that, and getting everybody fired up to go to war, and the homage to Native Americans, and I get all that, and I'm not even angry about any, like, war doesn't bother me.
Mhm.
I have no problem with killing people. I have no problem with you guys going out and doing your job. I have no problem with any of that. Where my problems lie in two major areas. Number one, when someone covers something up because if there's a cover up, there's a reason.
Yeah.
It just is.
Oh, no doubt.
You either did it or you didn't do it. And if you have to cover it up, it means you probably shouldn't have done it. And in the investigator world, I look at things from evidence, from laws of probability, from um, having conversations with people and understanding their human behavior tendencies. So everything comes into full circle with a whole bunch of different angles that I look at things. And right now I'm looking at patterns and the patterns of corruption and covering things up. And over time, those patterns became more um, easily acceptable within the teams. Became less about, let's keep our mouth shut about John Chapman and hope to God no one ever talks about it. And if it does, we have the luxury of time to allow for the fog of war or whatever excuse comes up about, I don't remember things as clearly as I probably should have when it first happened. And you have this feeling of that you can sell to the public this, yeah, well, we didn't, yeah, maybe, well, war sucks. Like you can always fall back on, we're Navy SEALs and war sucks. And the reality is, with John Chapman, that was not um, thank God for that video, or else war sucks would have been the
Yeah, well,
solution to that
that's the
conversation.
truth, too. That was the first. I'm at second deployment for Red Squadron, and I had not gotten there yet. I do know all the guys involved. I never met Chappie. Nothing but great things about him. But it is odd that his story took so long, because if you see the footage, or I mean, and I recommend to anyone listen to this, read Alone at Dawn. I've already read it twice. And you were
We both.
Matt.
I'm good friends with Lori, his
Oh,
sister.
cool. And
So, and
you
I
were
introduced Lori to Jeremy.
he needs to John Chapman should have 2 medals of honor, no doubt about it. Just, I mean, heroic. I've worked with Slab a little bit, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. And he's got survivor's guilt because of what happened on there. And I think what he said is he was sort of looking at the laser on Chappie's chest, and it stopped moving. Wasn't there. I've never been shot at that close in the snow with PKMs. I haven't been shot at with PKMs. They're scary, but at night in a brand new environment, got to be scary as shit. And I mean, it's loud and scary. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I can't tell the story. But I mean, reading that book is incredible. And I do know the guys that got shot on the mountain, scary as shit. And I knew Neil Roberts was actually the first guy I met at SEAL Team 2. As a new guy getting beat up by everyone, he was nice enough to take me to Arby's. He took me and one of the new kid to Arby's. And again, a handsome guy, Matt. You know, a lot of that red beard's going on.
Well, there's only so many good gingers out in the world, and apparently we've got a few of them here.
Let's take it to some stuff, Matt, and I don't want to cut you off, but I do want to take some things that Rob can absolutely answer, because these things, you know, I don't know that he was on these missions, and it, you know, we can say these things happened or they didn't happen in terms of SEALs scalping people or sexual abuse to the enemies. I've heard those stories. You know, I've seen Matt, what's his name, Matt Cole and others talk about that. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. I haven't seen it. So I do want to get into some of the nuts and bolts with Rob of that night, the raid. And I'll start with a question that I wrote down. And then again, I'll hand it back over to you guys. But I find it, Rob, that the compound it's strange. Why would Osama bin Laden, the most wanted terrorist in the world, he knew it, everybody else knew it, be at a place like that's not too far away from what's been called a resort town? And then you guys were expecting, you said, we thought that, I think you said thermobaric explosives hanging from the ceilings. Possibly you thought that there was going to be guys blowing themselves up, and you kept expecting it, but it wasn't happening. Not to say that they weren't fighting back against you, but it almost seems like, hey, here's the red carpet. Has that ever struck you as strange?
I mean, at the time it did, because he's going to defend himself. And like I said, if anyone's going to martyr himself, it's going to be bin Laden. It did surprise me. It surprised me that, I mean, there was a little resistance, but not much. And then I think we were just able, the smarter people than us with interpreters were able to tell the locals that it's an ISI exercise or something like that. There wasn't the resistance that we had intended on seeing. And like I said, it wasn't even the most difficult target I've ever been on. He was there. And I think, again, this is my speculation, he's very close to an ISI retired colonel, I think. So ISI has every interest in hiding him in plain sight, because, you know, they have nuclear weapons. They don't want Al-Qaeda to hate them more than they already do. So they have interest in that. I'm 100% certain that they were hiding him. But, complacency kills. He'd been there a long, long time. They've been burning their own shit and trash for the long, long time. And the rumor that I heard, they were going to move out in September 11th of that year. So I didn't ever talk to bin Laden. I did meet him for a second, but there are probably analysts that have better answers to that.
I just feel like if it's any one of us, I mean, if it's Jeremy, Rob, or Matt, and we're Osama bin Laden, we know that the whole world has our eyes on us. I'm just not going to be in that above ground compound for very long, maybe a day or two. And then I'm getting the hell out of there, because I know the CIA and the Department of Defense, the kind of intelligence we have, the budget, they're going to find my ass and I'm going to die. It's like a death wish almost. So that part, it has nothing to do with you, Rob. You're there doing a job, but I'm questioning like the whole government, almost like a Bill Cooper kind of thing, where Bill Cooper back in 2001 in July, I mean, you can't deny, he's like, they got a damn CNN reporter with a camera crew that goes in and finds Osama bin Laden, interviews him, and he's like, but yet our government and the Department of Defense, with a $300 billion budget, I think it was at the time, biggest in the world, we can't find him, but the CNN guy does.
Well, I think they found him before. I mean, before that, I think they knew where he is for a while, and they're trying to get a pattern of life and then trying to sell it for a long, long time.
What does sell it mean?
Sell it. They didn't, like, even President Obama, he told us at the end, I was never 100% convinced he was there. I was convinced after seeing you guys, you could get in, find out, and leave, which is good. But like that, and again, with the government too, they're back to personal power. Everyone's covering their own ass because they don't want to lose their potential promotion. So, I mean, that she was depicted as Maya in Zero Dark 30. They weren't going to let her do it. And even after the fact, I saw her a couple months later, and because everyone was saying that she's crazy, he's not there. As soon as we killed him, there's a couple hundred people in a big hangar getting awards for finding bin Laden. Since she said she didn't even get her own parking place. So, I mean, a lot of the higher up questions I can't answer, but I'm assuming it's because, well, Pakistan's guarding me. They're going to tell Pakistan if they come in here. So they're going to tell us we can get out of here quick. We don't need to make a big signature. And plus, we were doing counterintelligence. We made up the cave thing, and we made up the dialysis machine thing, because we knew that whenever a source comes in and says, I definitely saw him, I saw the dialysis, so I can get paid, we know he's lying, because there is no dialysis, because we made the whole kidney thing up.
I've heard of that. Matt, have you heard that it was?
Yeah. And the what I've been told from people in the intelligence community about that raid is that, for at least 6 months, the CIA and the ISI and even the Saudis were involved in a coordinated, and not to take away from the raid, but the reality is, and I think you'll agree with this, that the only person that shot was in that outpost house there with the courier, potentially, I guess, is potentially who they're saying was in that building, was really the only gunfire in the entire operation came from inside that, and then back into it where the woman, her husband, was killed inside there. And so it wasn't necessarily, which, when you think about the overall how a mission would go, and I was on SWAT jobs for 11 years, and I understand planning and preparation and going through all the motions to make sure you have the best plan possible. The helicopters, they were trained with chain link fences, not brick walls, and not being able to hover and get air, and all those things go into play. And you talked about the stealth. They hadn't been used. Those Black Hawks hadn't been used in an operation before. And for me as a planner, well, why the fuck would we use it on that one? Like, couldn't we have tried it on a couple shittier terrorists that weren't nearly as important?
The story that I got was President Obama didn't even know about him, and he was being told about the options, and then the chief of staff of the Air Force or someone like that told him there's one other thing that we haven't thought of, and that's when we got brought in. That's what I heard. Again, there were conversations I wasn't involved with. I mean, my easy out on this is I was smart enough to carry a sledgehammer and a gun, and they told me to go that way. That's
Sledgehammer, dude. You said a knife was too heavy. You ain't carrying no sledgehammer.
Well, no. But see, you got to figure we had a give, if you were a medic or a corpsman, you're bringing the medical gear. If you carried a radio, you're the radio guy. We had to streamline it. So, because new guys carry the ladder and the sledgehammer, but because we're not bringing any new guys, I guess I'm carrying the sledgehammer. So good call though, Jay. You caught me on that one.
So I guess, and this is probably a good time to get into the weeds of the some of my questions about the raid itself, and understanding, in your interviews, you talked about that you thought you were going to die, that this was a suicide mission, essentially, that somebody was going to blow something up and you were going to be part of that wreckage. And when you get there and you're planning for this mission, and I firmly believe that there may or may not have been an entire team briefing. Maybe some other people had a little more in-depth briefing. I don't know, within the team, if everybody got the same exact briefing or not about what they're walking into over there. But the realities on the ground of what happened, where there was very little resistance.
Yeah.
40 plus minutes on the ground with a helicopter crash.
Yeah.
No military or police response.
Yeah.
Questions about who did what inside the house afterwards. Seems like a lot of not a big deals going on up until the ending of Bin Laden's dead, right? A whole lot of, man, that was nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. Or why isn't anybody coming? Where's all the people coming and wonder why there's a helicopter crash and another one sitting outside and a bunch of guys' pajamas running out trying to go into a building where clearly I would argue that ISI knows that he's in there, and that there should probably be some level of, if it wasn't a coordinated, I don't want to say scripted event, not for you, but for our government, that they knew that this was going to go down and it was not going to be a major firefight with loss of American lives. The way it ended kind of fits that narrative. So all the different things I just mentioned.
One quick thing, Rob, and Matt, when you say, this is something I never thought about, as you were talking, you said there wasn't much of a police force response. Would that have been local Pakistani police that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd never even considered the local police, but anyhow, sorry.
We knew it'd be a couple cops show up, and not a military quick reaction force. At least in the 32 minutes we wanted to give it, and like Matt just said, it was 47 minutes on the ground. But I mean, don't think these conversations weren't had on the ground. Even when the sniper and the dog handler and Cairo got to the part where they crash landed the helo, the sniper didn't even know that we crashed, and we heard him come over the radio and said, what he said was, "Hey guys, inside, be on alert. Okay, they're definitely ready for us because they have a training mock-up of our super secret helicopter in the front yard." And the ground commander came over and he goes, "No, jackass, that's ours. We crashed." And the sniper said, "Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than the shit I was just saying." So we're analyzing this the whole time. I mean, the stuff inside, the reason a lot more shots weren't fired, I think it's just because we were so damn quiet and we had the element of surprise, confusion. But, they heard a big bang outside, but they don't necessarily know that that's not the Pakistanis coming to get them out or pull them out. Because I know they know that Pakistan's hiding him. So what else could it be? That I don't know. I don't think Khalid got a shot off. I don't know if the guy in the front door got a shot off, and I know Bin Laden didn't get a shot off. So, I mean, it seems kind of light, and we were expecting more resistance, but it just wasn't there. And again, that's a question you have to ask the civilians on the ground in Pakistan.
Yeah, and those are facts. That's just the way it ended up being. For whether it was a well orchestrated intelligence mission where the SEAL Team 6 was just the people that were facilitating the mission inside the walls, or however it ended up being. The reality is that there was a lot of time on the ground, a lot of commotion, not a lot of shooting, and not a lot of response.
Yeah, I mean, we eliminated the threats when we saw them, and then we stayed longer just because of that. Because there wasn't a lot going on, so we gathered what we could. I mean, there's a pucker factor the whole time, and we got security outside, snipers outside. We're waiting for it, and those are legit questions.
So then we get to when I'm interviewing anybody at a crime scene, and there's always witnesses. Somebody's got to, if they want to get I got something to say, and everybody's got their version of what happened, whatever they see, and I take eyewitness accounts as credibly as I possibly can. But when there are two identical or close to identical accounts with two different people being involved in the same account, that creates a level of doubt in my mind as an investigator, where I have to go deeper and look into how can this possibly be, and who is telling the truth, who's not telling the truth. And I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this, with the Matt Bissonette version versus your version. And for me, where I'm struggling and where my brain goes into just on a surface level without ever having had conversations with people prior to having this conversation with you, my only question would have been, how can they both have the same story?
I had the
and
same.
How is it that?
Look, I don't know. We're at the same place, the same, different bird. I mentioned earlier, I don't want to get into other people that were there that, with.
And I'm not asking you to talk from that. I'm not asking you to talk from that. I'm just.
What I can definitely say is, two guys went up the stairs. I was number two man, and when I turned the corner, Bin Laden was standing there, and I shot him 3 times. I get asked this a lot too, and I don't want to. Everyone on the ground, I want to be very clear. Everyone on the ground was a very, very solid operator, picked for a reason. And then I told my story, and if you've noticed, I've had 2 books written about it, both approved by everybody, and major players on television, to include Adam McCraven and the Secretary Panetta, said my version of the story. Amal Bin Laden said my version of the story, and I don't want to disparage anybody else. Because I've heard everything from Bin Laden died as Tim Osman in 2001 to this is a body double to it never happened type shit. And again, I was there. I saw. I'm your best source now, and don't be afraid to use me as a source. But I'm literally telling you exactly what happened. I can't speak for why someone did something else. There's other stuff on the ground too that there were conversations had why certain members would say they did something they didn't do because it didn't happen just in the room I was in. It was somewhere else as well. I'd rather talk about that offline at first because I don't want to talk about other shooters on the ground. But my story's never changed.
So,
I'm at the point where too, it's like, I'm not trying to take credit for this. I don't want credit for this because of the amazing people that got us there, to include the pilots. Never get a bit of credit either. Like I said, I carried a sledgehammer gun, turned corner because someone brave was in front of me. And why another story came out, I really don't know. I know that the author got sued and gave back a bunch of money. I can't speak for that. I would work with anybody on that mission again because they were very, very good at what they did.
Rob, do you mind sharing with me real quick? Personal curiosity. I mean, what Matt, and his pseudonym is Mark Owens. He wrote the book, No Easy Day. And I've wondered this. Were you friends with him? Maybe you guys don't talk now. I don't know. But were you guys buddies at one time?
I went through a selection with him, green team with him, and again, he was always good, and we were always competing. Because we're just talking about him and me. He and I were always the top two shooting against each other. There was another guy I don't want to mention. He was actually better than both of us, but he knows who he is. Yeah, I knew him a long time. And here's something I don't think I've mentioned, maybe in a book, but there's a reason that if anyone didn't like me, listen to this shit, because we used to go to Tucson, Arizona all the time, at least like 10 to 13, 15 times a year for hey-ho trips, high altitude, high opening. And I'm a big points guy. So I stay at the same hotel, rent from the same people. I love like Marriott points and all that shit. And I rented a car again. And because I had so many points, they upgraded me to a Mustang convertible on a work trip where I should have had a full size to carry more people. And that's why some people got mad at me. And I've heard rumors that was the grudge the entire time. How silly is that? I mean, hey, war
There's
as
so
hell.
many other things that people get shit on. But that's the one that they get you on. I guess that's probably the best.
I know. I heard about that later too, and I'm like, I mean, I would have given them the car. I would have. I'll go back and get the minivan. I'm sorry, guys. I'm an enlisted guy. I don't make much money. It's a convertible. I'm taking it.
So let me. I want to get back into the meat of this because my brain's locked in, and I
Yeah.
don't want to. I don't want to not talk about some topics. Can you do me a favor, because I don't think it's ever been really discussed, even in Bissonnette's version on 60 Minutes, which is probably the closest as far as understanding. Like, they had the mock-up of the building with the different floors and what it looked like. But what is the size, like the dimensions of that house? Like when you're in that house and you're on the second floor and you're about ready to go up to the third floor, is it a gigantic house from the where you were at the 8-man position as people are starting to clear out rooms and you
When I
move up to number two?
got to the north end and I was behind some dudes on the stairwell, and they had already spotted Khalid jump behind a banister, and I should have, being in combat in an urban area, grabbed a few guys and moved them back, because if he starts chucking grenades or whatever, you don't want to be there. But I was so convinced that we're going to die, I got to see what happens, and that's when I saw the point man deal with him. Very, very, smarter than I would have been, just the way he did it. But at this point, it's like a normal stairwell that goes up and comes back. 10-foot ceilings or whatever. It's a 3-story house. So the second floor, the stairwell to go up, the last set was sort of in the middle, and there was rooms off to the sides.
Okay.
And we were just, and there was a curtain hanging there when we were there. But I talked to an author named Peter Bergen when I got back, like out of the Navy, and he'd been to the house as well, and he was asking why certain blood splatter was at certain spots. And I said, well, the curtain, when it was moved, and he said, what curtain? I'm like, well, and he said, oh, there was no curtain when I got there. Then I could see him thinking, going, oh, that makes sense. That's where the shots came from. Something like that. And again, I'm not trying to take credit for this fucking thing. I just, I'm the luckiest, unlucky man in the world. Right place, wrong time, shit like that. But it was a normal size house, normal size stairs. And it looked like a lot of targets we'd been on in both, well, mainly Iraq, not necessarily, the values of Afghanistan, but there was nothing special about the house other than the balconies and the shit on the side so you couldn't see in.
Mm-hmm. So the balconies, are they on the south side or the north side?
The south. Well, the ones you see right now on the north side, those aren't really balconies, but the ones you can see where, so that's a better picture. You can see there's balconies on the second and third floor, and those third floor balconies were so high that you couldn't see if anybody was out there. So that's why that was on the third floor, the privacy.
So when the point guy, who is obviously Reds, when he took that shot on Khalid, was that a distance shot? Was it like 4 steps down, from a landing, like 4 steps landing?
Oh, no, that's a foot away shot, because he kind of came up and over the balcony to look, and I think he got him out of confusion. Because he said something in 2 languages he spoke. So it was just a short shot. Very, tactically sound as shit. That's a black belt tactics right there.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Yeah. So when then, you squeeze up and you guys go up and you turn to come back up the stairs to the third floor, is that like a 5 or 6 steps? And then, where is, I remember you said that before you got up there, Reds had taken some shots. They heard a couple shots from the number 1 guy, the point guy, Reds. There was a couple shots taken up to the third floor. I'm not
getting to any names. Nobody wants to be named. I just know that there was a guy that was, I think that 2 guys that switched out from point to point like going to the second floor. There was one, and then they split off. And I think, but I didn't see it. Another guy took point, and then that was the point man for me. And there was a shot fired up the stair, up through the curtain before I got there.
Okay, so Reds wasn't the point guy.
I'm not talking about anyone's names. I don't want to mention.
Okay.
Those guys don't want to be associated at all, so I'm not going to even go down that path.
And I'm
I'd
aware.
recommend, and just to people, if they're listening who think they know, don't try to name people, because not everyone at SEAL Team 6 is as jovial as I am.
Oh, I get it, but please understand that the depth of knowledge of which I've been briefed, I'm aware of who he is.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to out anybody, but I also need to understand the complexities of the story, which have the point man, we'll call him, and we're not going to name names. I'm not going to drop a name on this podcast, because I do respect that part, but I do know his name. If you want, I can text you and you can verify it or not. But
trust you.
I'm trying to understand as an operator, and where people who have told me what their recollection of what occurred and what the after action reports initially said, that those rounds that were fired, and even and again, you're not going to confirm Matt Bissonet's story, I get that, but in his version of the story, Reds, or the point guy, fires a couple rounds up the stairs at a figure that pops his head out, and that head goes back into the whatever room from the top of the stairs. And when he comes in, Osama bin Laden's on the ground with bullet holes in him. They then pump more into him and a couple other people as they come in. And that's kind of his version of the story. So my question is, between the two stories, and again, that's where I'm coming from as an investigator, when I'm contrasting two different versions of the same event, where is the gap? And the gap is in those rounds being fired, and what happened to those rounds?
Well, the gap is, I didn't see the shots fired. The gap is when I followed the point man up the stairs and turned, bin Laden was standing on 2 feet, and he wasn't hit. And he had his hands on Amal's shoulders. And when I shot him, he was standing. I shot him again on the ground. And then the gap is the point man and I were in the room for a considerable amount of time before more guys came in. That could be where their confusion is. Maybe they thought they were a different stack, but there were 2 guys up there before them. All I know is Osama bin Laden was standing on 2 feet, and Amal bin Laden had been shot. I didn't shoot her.
Okay. So, had you ever mentioned Amal being shot? I mean, I've heard that as well.
I may have.
Different versions of the story, but had you ever? Okay.
It's in her book, it's in her papers, and it's in sort of the after action. But I mean, I can't speculate to what other guys were thinking. And I mean, there's 23 stories on the ground, maybe more, because the pilots and the air crew were there. And I would love for all of them to tell their part of the story, just for historical sake, because everyone did something different. And I mean, there's okay, I have an email. Again, I don't want to mention his name, but you have. But I got an email shortly after the raid asking me what happened in the room, because he didn't know. So I'll get you that email if you want. That'll be interesting. But but also I hate to go down the path of, I don't want to talk shit, because everyone's a hero. And everyone did a great job. And I've worked with all these guys a lot, and they're all really, really good guys. I would wake up and go to work with these guys and be happy, because I could go to a place and work with people who were better than me. So I don't want to do a he said, she said bullshit. I'm telling you what I saw. And I mean, I'm going to die with the truth. And God is my witness, bin Laden was standing on both feet, uninjured, just looking more confused than anything.
I've got a quick question for you, Rob, as I'm, piecing this together, and both of you guys have studied this a lot more than me. Matt studied, Rob, you were there. 2 different things. When you're talking about Amal, even major news sources have said she was on the ground, she was shot. I've never really heard you say whether you shot her or not. But that's the first time I've ever heard you say, and it sounded to me as if you said, you're talking about that gap, that she was shot when you first looked up and you said, there's Osama bin Laden. And she had been.
Well, I mean, I didn't see her get shot either. I saw her shot when I got in there.
But she was standing, because you said he had his hands on.
He had his hands on her. Yeah.
Okay.
She wasn't on the ground. I put her on the bed.
Tough chick.
So I think yeah. It's so weird too. I mean, not to get off, uh, just the again with the humanity, like you mentioned, tough chick. There was we had because Bin Laden had his two older wives sleeping downstairs, and his young wife Amal sleeping with him. And you know that this is way off topic, but there was a joke. We were listening to conversations with Al Qaeda afterwards, and they said, "Who turned him in?" And the other guy said, "Oh, he turned himself in." And they go, "Why would he turn himself in?" Dude said, "He's been living in the same house with 3 women for 5 years. He wanted him to show up and kill him." So,
There's some humanity there. I
guess marriage is the same in every country.
It is funny that, I mean, they're terrorists, but we have that in common with marriage.
So
yeah, but I mean, what I want to try to do is just like I can tell you without fail exactly what I saw, and that's just it. And these are great questions, and I wouldn't mind having a round table and figuring it out. I mean, it's
well that's a good question though, Rob. Like, because you said you've been friends, even if you're not great friends with Matt, okay, or Reds, as has been mentioned. Yeah. Matt Bissonette. Okay. The other guy. If I were you, man, I mean, you guys are professionals. Y'all know that. I mean, you're making the rounds. You're on podcasts all the time. I'd be calling that dude up tomorrow and be like, man, let's clear the air on this. Even if you feel differently than me, like we've got to come up with this, either the same story, like not that you got to come up with anything, but let's get on the same page. And one of us is confused. I'm surprised that you and him have not had that just man to man.
No, I mean, I hate bringing up names because he doesn't want to be named. No, we've had conversations.
He wrote a damn book.
I know, but it's
been on 60 Minutes. He's named himself. I mean, they called him Matt Bissonette on 60 Minutes.
You're wearing a fat suit using a fake name. You don't want your name out there, but you want to pimp the book that you didn't get authorized. So I don't.
Wait, no, he was wearing a fat suit?
Well, yeah, didn't you see that suit? I saw that interview, and I was like, which poor schlub did he talk into doing this? Because that's not him. It's like, wow, that's really, really good makeup. That's like Professor Clump shit.
I thought he just gained a bunch of weight. I thought he got depressed or something.
No.
Wow.
No, I mean, and again, time heals everything, I think, too. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when people ask me about why do you always mention Bin Laden? And my response is, if you stopped asking, I'll stop talking about it. I mean, I'm just kind of over it. And it's such a team effort. I just happened to be in a spot, and that's what happened. That's what went down. And, it is what it is. I mean, there's
one thing you've said just based on, and I could be wrong, but that I don't believe. And it's not about the nuts and bolts of what happened. It's about your emotions. When you're telling me that you've said multiple times, I just I knew we were going to die. Like, I just want to get it over with. I don't believe that, man. I think that you're an American guy that's with the special forces. You've been on 400 missions, and you're thinking, I know I'm going to die, but yet it's relatively quiet in the compound. To me, I would think you'd be saying, shit, I'm better than these people. I'm going to get this shit done. I'm not going to die tonight.
When Bin Laden was dead, it was okay, now let's leave. I'm tired of being here. Let's leave. I was actually trying to round guys up when it got towards it we can get the fuck out of here and leave. I mean, on the way in, we're not scared, but I made peace with a one-way mission. And even to the point when I went through the door, saw the pilots, looked up at the house, I remember saying to myself, you need to ingrain this because this is it, but you need to remember what happened here. And the further we got, the more bombs I didn't see, the more I saw my guys working. It's like, all right. And then 3rd floor, shoot them up, shit, blow the helo, call another one. So it was an acceptance of this is what we came for. It's the whole Braveheart. If I could be on my deathbed in 70 years, but give every day from then until now to have one shot at this, would I do it? I'm going. We're all fucking going. And there's not going to be hesitation. So, I mean, it wasn't morbid, but I mean, when I said goodbye to my kids, it was sad. One of the music I listened to was sad. I listened to, actually, it was pretty fitting, not sad. It more fired me up. I listened to Red Nation by The Game and Lil Wayne on the way in. And that is a song you got to listen to. It was like, you killed Satan, putting blood in the air, putting blood on the ground, Red Nation, like Red Squadron. That was cool. So,
I thought you were going to say something like the song that they do with the SPCA with what's her face, Sarah McLachlan or something like that.
Jesus, don't bring that up. No, how can you be afraid when you're listening to the fucking game, man? You're just going to be amped.
Yeah. So again, so it's mixed emotions, what I'm hearing. Like on the one hand, we might die. Let's get this over with.
Yeah.
On the other hand, kind of like I was saying, like nothing's going to happen to me. We're better than these people. Was it both things at the same time?
Just, a bullet needs to be right once. And if the house blows up, it's just your time. I think some of the solace was also that I'm with the best guys I can find. Like if I die, I'm with the best guys, and it's. I mean, what a fucking way to go. It was we accepted it, but it's not like we weren't stutter stepping or hesitating. It was legit. And they were great. I mean, I knew we were a great team, and even like I don't know if I was gullible or what, or just too trusting, but even when we got back after we had our debrief, I remember looking around at that room thinking, we are going to be the best friends forever. And that was true for about half a day.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way. I've got one more question for you, and then both of you guys, how much time do we have? Not that we got to go all night, but what's the cutoff?
I got to jump pretty soon, but I mean, just before we do, can we do this again soon? Because just everything that Matt said that I wasn't aware of with Roberts Ridge, and we got to talk about Benghazi. I want to learn more about what Joe Price was doing and shit like that. Can we just set up another time to do this?
Let's do that. As soon as we get off, we'll do it. Do you have 15 minutes, Rob?
Yeah, let's do 15 more minutes. Sure.
15 minutes. Okay. So my question is this, and it's just a big general one again, and then I'll let you guys, kind of have your last questions for each other. So Rob, when you say that I saw him, I know it was the first thing you wrote to me. You said, Jeremy, like, I like your stuff because you study, you research. That's why I like watching your stuff. But on this issue, like I killed him. I know it. Mm-hmm. You said you even have held his face split in two in your hands with those gloves behind you and held his face together for photos. Are you 99%? Or are you 100%? Like, I mean, is there room for error at all? Ever?
No.
Not a bit.
No, what I recognized him after being impressed with how tall and skinny and his white beard was his nose, because you got to figure, and I'm sure Matt's seen it at the range where it's Bin Laden's face. You recognize that nose that he had, and I saw the nose and I shot him in it. You don't. That's a very distinct face, and they've been shoving it down the throat since 9/11. There was no doubt that's him.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear. Just wanted to know if you could say there was any margin of error either in your own memory or that it could have been prosthetics or any kind of thing like that.
No.
Okay. Go ahead, Matt. We got 13 minutes.
I want to finish up with a couple questions because again, I'm just quantifying information that was given to me from people who were present at the same places you were at the same time. When you guys got back to Bagram,
yes,
and you were doing your debrief with McCraven and the command master chief.
I think that debrief with the master chief from Red Squadron and I don't think McCraven might not have been in there. I think the ground force.
Hold on, we broke up, guys.
Okay,
hey, Rob. Hey guys, 1 second. That was very important, and we had a glitch in the matrix there. Rob, go back if you don't mind. Let's kind of get the feed here going. Okay, I think we're good. Rob, pick up what you said about McCraven.
We had a debrief in JBAD and in Bagram. The big one was in Bagram, in a private room, and I think it was just ground force commander and their command master chief. I don't think McCraven was in there.
Okay. So, I know for a fact about the command master chief. Now that was recorded, and from what I was told from several people, that when the debriefing was going on and you offered your portion of that, what happened, that it was never mentioned that you killed Osama bin Laden in that recorded debrief. Do you recall that at all?
I recall the recorded debrief, and I know shit. When we got done recording it, I said to myself, I'm immediately going to regret this. But we do our best at cleaning up debriefs to avoid. We don't know what's going to happen on a mission this big, and we don't know if people threw errant shots brought up ever, and that's it. And so we're going to make it sound nice and clean, and that's what they're going to take. So it's not like I didn't. The way we said is that the two of us went up and we talked about the two of us doing it. I think the phrase "circling the drain" was used, and that did happen. I don't regret that. I mean, I thought I would regret it because I don't know. I didn't know what it was capable of, but I knew my guys weren't going to get reprimanded for anything they did. Everything went by the book.
Okay. I mean, and thank you for at least validating my information, which I'm trying to make sure that
Well,
if
I
I'm gonna
gotta be honest, man. You definitely have good sources. I'm impressed.
thank you.
So we
And
had
I've
some
worked
glitches there. I
hard
want to make
because
sure that I heard what I heard. So on the one hand, Rob, you were saying that in the final debrief, it was that you never mentioned, or that it were you the one debriefing McCraven?
No, it was an assault team debrief, kind of just sitting in a room,
With a bunch of guys.
and sort of going over, yeah, and then it's going over who did what in this house, and tell me your part, tell me your part.
Eh, Okay. I mean, that is very
yeah,
suspect. I got to admit that in a room full of guys, all Navy SEALs that are there, and McCraven, that it doesn't come up who takes the shot. Weird.
It wasn't really brought up right then because every single dude from the hallway on the third floor to the second floor to the first floor, back in the helos to the hangar, every single guy said the same thing. They said, "Who got him?" And the response, I remember this because the response was, "Nizro got him," and that's me, Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill. And I guess the common answer to that was, "Oh shit, we're never going to hear the end of this." So
Okay.
those conversations had always been had. And even back to the White House, there was one of our guys working in the White House, and he called someone in Virginia Beach and said, "Hey, it was your boy. It was Nizro that got him." And then the West Coast was doing the same. I got called that night when I got back from two senior guys on the West Coast to congratulate me. But again, it's like the debriefs are not about building up one guy and what a study is. And that's certainly not what I was going to do in a debrief when we're just going to say, "Hey, look, the team got him. It's awesome. We're going to be best friends forever." And weird shit happened. Like we went to get our awards before we met President Obama in Kentucky, and we're sitting there, and there's already rumblings and shit. And then this Army dude walked right in front of me. I was sitting, and he saluted me in front of everybody, and I'm like, well, didn't really need that either.
The Army dude saluted you because he knew?
Yeah, he knew. Because
Okay.
people were asking. I mean, right after the brief, that's the first thing they asked. And then the debrief is never the time to say, "Oh, and by the way, look at me. I killed bin Laden."
Let me ask you this, Rob. Can you validate, like, you put yourself in my shoes or in Matt's shoes, your story, the story that you've told, and the story that I can get off any mainstream publication or video, it's pretty much always the same thing. Then you've got Matt Bissonette's version, but then this part of it, I mean, can you see how we'd be like, that's a head scratcher. That's pretty weird. And then on the heels of that, McCraven sends all the photographs that you took to the CIA so they can't be seen anymore. Like, why don't they just kill the drill? Give us the DNA evidence that it was Osama bin Laden, and give us a damn photo, even if you've got to do a FOIA request to get it. Like, make it possible. And then this whole thing goes away.
I've asked, and I know where the pictures are. I've talked to Congressman Mike McCall about it. I talked to another congressman today, and they're just saying, nobody needs to get elected bad enough that they could release the pictures to get a reelection. But I will say the name of one guy that was there. I think I froze in a very bad spot there.
Yeah, you got the CIA in there, like turning down your signal, dude.
And I'm about to go here. It was. Do you want to know who killed Kennedy? Oh, you already know. You keep mentioning one guy, and every time you hear him mentioned, just pay attention to this. When you hear him mentioned again offline or somewhere else other than here, you'll always notice he's more of a everyone except me. Everyone was wrong except me. So.
Hey, Rob, just because we're wrapping up here and we're losing signal, be real still. Both of you guys just be still for a second. I don't know why we're having bandwidth issues. Rob, make that last joke again, dude, because I don't want to miss it as we're kind of closing things out here.
No, what I was saying is you mentioned another guy that seems to have a different story, everything he's involved with. And it reminds me of the whole, look, everyone screwed up except me. Everyone sucks except me. My story's better. I mean, whatever. I see it. And again, I'm not throwing stones here. I'm kind of over everything.
Yeah. Well, Matt, do you have any parting questions here? And then we'll sign off. We don't have to end with a Q&A, but if you got one more, I think we got time for it.
Well, first of all, thanks, Rob, for the time. This is, you've been as forthright as I think you possibly could be. I understand the desire desire to not name people and not get involved in other people's stories. And I understand that. That's not my gig. My gig is
Yeah.
I want other people's names to be known, because quite frankly, I think this all goes to bed. Everything goes to bed. Um, if the other guy that was there with you in that level initially has a conversation publicly, and that would be
Yeah.
my request, is that we end the mystery, because it remains a mystery. It remains John Chapman, had it not been for a drone with the ability to identify who was doing what, there would never be any answers to that. The winning story is always the victors. And for me, I don't like to play that game. And I think truth is truth. There's people have their own truth, but ultimately the facts are truth. And
Yeah.
and I think if we can get to that, that'd be great.
I would I would love everyone to tell their stories, especially the guy in front of me going up the stairs. I'd love to tell him to tell his stories, because he and I are the only people that know what happened, and
Yep.
we both know what happened. And he's just a guy that doesn't want to be known. He wants to go. He wants to go to his quiet place and hang with his family, have a cocktail before he goes to bed. But I mean, I'd love it if he told his story. I'm not going to tell for him or even acknowledge his name. But great dude, solid dude.
One last thing, I just want to make sure that if we do this again, one thing I want to make sure that we try to accomplish is, because I think it is important. We can't live under this cloak of perfection within our military fighting force. That we make mistakes, that we are not perfect, and that we are also human, and that there is, just as if in the powers within our executive branch or our elected officials, where they have power and hunger and greed that sometimes rule their decision making, within our
Mhm.
military. And we mentioned McCraven many times. He's not the guy that makes his bed every morning. I can tell you that much. That's not who he. I know that for a fact. And you have Tim Zemansky. You have a bunch of other people that are not who they say
I
they
know.
are. And
I know the
and I
names.
think there is a lot of meat on the bone that needs to be discussed, whether you acknowledge it or not. I think it needs to be discussed, because I think we need to get back to, and I'll finish with this. We need to get back to the honor and dignity in doing our jobs as professionals, and having that be the thing that is left at the end, is when people go, the folklore songs and the stories written about the greatest generation in World War II, and Iwo Jima, and those, I would rather have a million of those, where and 10 of the ones, yeah, we fucked on this, we shouldn't have done this, we're going to address it and deal with it, rather than trying to cover it up and hide it, so that we don't allow ourselves to have that transparency, and it clouds, and it muddies the water for great, heroic, courageous actions on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's a learning tool too. If you tell the truth, you learn from the truth a lot easier. You learn from screwing up a lot better. So I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a conversation to be had too, because there's other stuff I want to touch on, and just to get more into it, and just I'm happy I'm able to tell you here's what I saw in Bin Laden's house, but there's a lot more stuff I'd love to talk about that we can't cover.
Well,
Um,
Yep.
Rob, I want to say this. Thank you for doing this. You told me on the phone, I said, when it comes to freedom lovers like myself, patriots, conservatives, whatever you want to call me, but I said, have you gone on a show where you've been directly challenged by someone like me or like Matt? And I believe you said no. In fact, I know you said no. So you didn't have to do this. You did it. I appreciate that. I know not all these were easy questions. I would love to do a follow-up with you, Rob, or with you, Matt, or both of you together. It'd be great. I want to close this out. Once you get off, I'm going to give kind of a follow-up, my thoughts. You're welcome to stay on and watch after I'll let you guys go here, just because I've had a lot to think about too with this. This is the first time I've done something like this where I've kind of moderated a discussion. But Rob, thank you for your service. There's a lot of bravery and courage, not only with today, but your entire career. And whether we agree on everything or about the facts or not the facts, whatever, we still have an understanding. Like I said at the beginning of the show, there is corruption, like Matt was saying, that has to be excavated if we are to salvage this nation and come back to a place of strength in our country. That's something we can all agree on. And Matt, thank you for being willing to do it, because not many guys are going to stand toe to toe with Rob O'Neill, who's a nationally known figure and has the kind of, gravitas that he does. So I really appreciate both of you doing that today.
Hey, we'll be yelling at
Thanks
each
for having
other
us,
in the
man.
comments. comments right after this. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. You're always here to lighten the mood, man. Thank you. All right, guys. I'll be in touch with both of you about doing a follow-up. You're welcome to stay on and watch as I close this thing out.
I got to bounce. Thanks, Matt, for being here. Jay, thanks for hosting us. We're definitely doing this again. Thank you.
Absolutely, Rob. Thanks a lot. Matt, thank you, brother. All right, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning in tonight. I've put a lot of thought into this. Matt is, like I said before, I didn't give him a great introduction because it was all live and I had a lot of stuff written down. But, Matt did reach out and gave me a ton of information. And I was like, wow. And as I began to look up the things he was talking about, they were verifiable. And I'm not talking about this raid on Osama bin Laden. I'm talking about the stuff with Roberts Ridge. And if you are unfamiliar with John Chapman and Roberts Ridge, just like Matt told me, he said, I dare you to watch this 15-minute drone video of John Chapman and his heroic deeds when he was left alone to fight basically overnight. I think it was like 20 hours, give or take a little bit. And I mean, the dude was a one-man army and didn't get the credit he deserved for a long time. I'm going to link to that video shortly after we close this out. But I say that to say this, he was verifiably proving to me a lot of the corruption that's gone on in our geopolitics, but specifically in the military and the special forces. So when Rob reached out to me and said, you're wrong on this when I want to come on your show, I felt this, like, it was like my heart hit my stomach a little bit. Cause on the one hand, it's like, it's a great opportunity. Like I said, he's a nationally known figure. I want to hear from this man. On the other hand, it's like, if there's a secret that he has to be a part of a cover up, or if it's being done without his knowledge, because the kind of technology that they have, the prosthetics, the body doubles, all that stuff. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it happens when it's needed. When our government needs to hold on to a secret, they'll go to almost any length. And you combine that with some of the other things that I would consider holes in the story. They're all expecting there to be suicide bombings, that there's going to be thermobaric, bombs hanging from the ceilings and all this stuff. And it was relatively an easy fight. The shots were taken. That's one thing that didn't come up necessarily in the conversation was, I don't know how you shoot a guy 2 times in the forehead or in the face as he's falling from that close. I don't know. That didn't come up, but there's just some holes there. But I feel like Rob, either, I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I just feel like there could be a lot of weight on him to not say more for whatever reason. And for that, I'm concerned for him. What happens to people that get too close to the truth and have the power, the ability, and the audience to expose our government. They typically go off the face of the planet. So nobody wants that to happen to that guy. I like Rob. I like Matt. So it's a dangerous game. Like I said before, I thank both of them for coming on. Here's what I want you guys to do. We didn't get a chance really to look at the live feed tonight because we had some technical issues, and here I am working my stream deck as this thing's plodding along, trying to go between, I'm a one-man show over here, trying to cut between different angles and all that. I want you guys to take your best questions, the very best ones. I want you to put those questions in the main comments on this video. I guarantee you that Rob is going to be going back and looking at that. I know Matt will, and I will. Put those in there. That will form a basis of some Q&A that we will do on our next show that we talked about. I'm excited about doing another show. I do think we should get into Roberts Ridge and some of those other things, keep it a little bit lighter. But I do also think the holes are big enough, whether it's Reds, whether it's Bissonnette, whether it's one of the other members. Those guys need to get freaking together and get their story straight, whether it's truth or not truth. But I mean, there's just, the holes are too big to be left alone, in my opinion, as a host trying to look at this from a neutral perspective. And I'm just not going to be another one of those hosts that brings on a figure like Rob and just, says, hey, dude, whatever you say, you're a hero. Cause in many ways, absolutely, he's a hero, but I'm not going to bow down and just not ask the questions when they're fairly apparent, as I think many of you in the audience, could see. And I say that with all respect. So I think I've blabbered on enough, guys. I really appreciate you tuning in to Jay Slay, Made in the USA. If you have an idea for a great guest please send them my way. Hit me up in direct messages on Instagram or on Telegram. I check those most often, Instagram or Telegram. You can DM me not only, don't tell me just ideas. If you've got a way to connect me with that person, that would be best. Also, if you guys would like to ever donate, you can do that in the live chat. I'm doing this, for no charge to the public. And I would love to get any support that I can get from you guys because I got to feed the family, trying to live life over here. All right. Under these bright lights, got a little high blood pressure right now. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. I will see you all very soon, and keep tuning in to Jay Slay, Made in the USA.